United States President Donald Trump has indeed kept his word and imposed additional tariffs against India for buying Russian oil. Moreover, he did this without waiting for the deadline given to dictator Putin on August 8. Essentially, United States President Donald Trump signed an order for additional tariffs on India for purchasing Russian oil just a few hours after his special representative Stephen Witkoff's negotiations with dictator Putin ended in the Kremlin, which indicates that there is no progress yet. At the same time, it seems that India has finally chosen a side, and for the first time in 7 years, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is making an official visit to Beijing to meet with the Chinese. Well, and his officials are heading to Moscow for negotiations as soon as tomorrow, August 7th. I'm Alexei Pechi. Today is August 6th. Let's discuss this date thoroughly. But before we begin, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, leave any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, today Donald Trump, just a couple of hours after Witkoff met with Putin, finally signed an order to impose additional tariffs against India for its economic ties with Russia. According to the document, which has already been published on the White House website, Indian imports will be subject to an additional 25% tariff. Currently, Indian goods in the United States are already subject to a 25% tariff. Thus, the total rate reaches 50% on all Indian goods. This, of course, is not the promised 100%, but the White House hints that the main tariff may still be introduced. After the deadline that Trump gave to Putin expires, the deadline ends on Friday, August 8th. But for India, this deadline is being pushed back again. Let me explain. Here, Trump actually made some concessions. First, he didn't impose a 100% tariff as he had promised. And second, the new tariff, these additional 25% duties against India, will take effect in 21 days. If by that time Russia stops its aggression against Ukraine, the decree may be changed or cancelled according to the White House website. If Russia continues the war, the tariff may increase. Similar duties may be imposed on other countries buying oil from the Russian Federation, the White House warns. And first of all, these are China, Brazil and Turkey. Well, it seems like Trump hit India, but he's kind of delaying the effect a little bit. Witkoff's visit to the Kremlin, continuation the fourth since the beginning of this year, lasted about 3 hours. And now, the aide to the Russian president, Yuri Ushakov, stated that the conversation was quite useful and constructive. Quote, on our side, in particular regarding the Ukrainian issue, as they say, some signals were conveyed. President Trump also sent relevant signals, making it clear what kind of signals we're discussing. Putin requested a personal meeting with Trump to somehow resolve the issue of Russia's war against Ukraine. And also, according to Bloomberg, Putin offered Trump an aerial ceasefire in Ukraine, meaning a mutual refusal by Moscow and Kyiv to carry out missile strikes and drone raids. At the same time, the Russian dictator is still not ready for a complete ceasefire, which Trump demanded by giving Putin an ultimatum until August 8. Reuters sources close to the Kremlin said that Trump's ultimatum did not change the intentions of the Russian leadership. Putin is still focused on seizing 4 Ukrainian regions, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson, which were declared supposedly part of Russia after the so-called pseudo-referendums in the fall of 2022. The Russian dictator, as the agency sources claimed, is confident that his army will win on the battlefield and does not believe in the effectiveness of new sanctions. According to Reuters, generals from the Russian army's general staff promised Putin that the Ukrainian defense would collapse within 2 to 3 months. Well, in general, there is still no sign that Trump will lift the sanctions against India. But this time, India is behaving quite unpredictably in this situation and, in my opinion, subjectively. Foolishly. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit China at the end of August for the first time in more than 7 years. Let me remind you, there is still quite a strong hostility between China and India. This visit comes amid rising tensions in India's relations with the United States. And, according to a source from Reuters, Modi will travel to China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, which will begin on August 31. It is noted that Narendra Modi's trip will take place at a time when India's relations with the United States are experiencing the most serious crisis in recent years. After American President Donald Trump imposed the highest tariffs among Asian countries on goods imported from India. Well, and he is also threatening New Delhi with further sanctions because of the purchase of Russian oil. The visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the Chinese city of Tianjin to participate in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit will be his first trip to China since 2018. Let me remind you that later, after 2018, Chinese-Indian relations sharply deteriorated after a military clash on their shared Himalayan border in 2020. It is noted that Narendra Modi and Chinese leader Xi Jinping held talks on the sidelines of the Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa summit in Russia in October last year, which led to an improvement in relations between the two countries. And now the neighboring Asian countries are slowly easing the tensions that have hindered business relations and travel between India and China. At the same time, the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister of India, Ajit Doval, will visit Moscow tomorrow, August 7, for a series of meetings. Well, obviously, they will be discussing the new tariffs, and here as well. Let me remind you that United States President Donald Trump began sharply criticizing India for its trade with the Russians, as well as for, quote, the toughest and most unpleasant non-tariff trade barriers among all countries. The American leader notes that India is one of the largest buyers of Russian oil. And this, according to him, is happening at a time when Russia does not want to stop the killings in Ukraine. Well, finally, Trump has started moving from words to action, although he is once again trying to postpone all these key decisions. Now India has another 21 days to give up Russian oil or face additional tariffs. Will there be any more concessions from Donald Trump? Well, only time will tell, considering that Trump's position can change at any moment. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.